don't mind standing, please. Lord, may everything we do begin with you, continue with your help, and be done under your guidance. May we grow in your love and your service, and may our efforts for the common good become a pleasing offering to you. Almighty and eternal God, protect our servicemen and women as they discharge their duties. Protect them with the shield of your strength and keep them safe from all evil and harm. May the power of your love enable them to return home in safety, so that all who love them may forever praise you for your loving care. Amen. Amen. Okay, so remain standing while we do the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is back there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion in regard?
I'm sorry. Could I, Mr. Eads would like us to make a couple of changes to the agenda, to the order, and he would like to move the discussion on, which one? Let's see. On the location of the future meetings, and then also the meeting type and schedule discussion, if he could move those two after the closed session, because he may need to give some legal guidance.
Okay, so we have a motion.
A second.
Second. And
have a member.
yes, you have a motion also.
I would like to take from the consent agenda, items E and F, planning board appointments and board of adjustment appointments, and bring that out to new business, I guess, under item C, the item D and E.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second motion.
Okay. All right, so we have some new items after the closed session, and then it's under new business, item E, appointments to the planning board and the board of adjustments. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the agenda with those changes?
Aye.
Okay, agenda is approved. All right, the next item is the manager's report. Brian?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome. And make some room. The manager's report will be posted tomorrow on the up on the website. So, and then we'll also post it on Facebook as well. The Beach Nourishment Project, Phase 5, the Matthew project, again, it was previously approved by FEMA for damages sustained to Hurricane Matthew. The project started on Monday, December 2nd. They've completed almost 12,000 linear feet, and as if you follow our Facebook page, then you see periodic updates for the property owners and other interested parties. And also, TI Coastal is completing the modification. We need to continue the project north. Actually, the permit was just approved for the modification to add another approximately 4,000 linear feet north for another 52,000 cubic yards of sand. For the Florence project, Fran, Caitlin, Laura, Scott, and I met with state and federal stakeholders to discuss the concerns they have with the offshore borrow site for our proposed FEMA project. FEMA requested the meeting during their environmental review based on concerns with the offshore borrow area. The concerns all stem from the rocks on the beach from our last 2015 Phase 5 project. The primary agencies with the concerns are the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, but also the Corps of Engineers and DCM also stated concerns with compatibility and potential mitigation. And that's also on tonight's agenda when Fran gets up here to discuss that. So, the Corps of Engineers project, the NTB Surf City Federal project, Congress passed the supplemental disaster bill for over $700 million, and the Corps determined that the significance of the law meant that it was 100% federal disaster financing to be used for the top projects. The New Start scored high. We are obviously very excited about the project. We recently had our first meeting with the Corps and Surf City. The project's time is being accelerated, so we are ready to dedicate whatever resources are needed to accomplish the project's goals. Initially, the Corps has only requested an updated beach survey, which we have provided, our post-Dorian survey. Fran got that to them and are awaiting further direction. Surf City has proposed a committee to oversee and manage the project, and it's on tonight's agenda for the Board of Aldermen when I get to that point to discuss that. The Corps of Engineers dredging, ICW New River Inlet Crossing. As of Monday, Brennan Dooley with the Corps reported the project is still scheduled to begin in approximately 2 to 3 weeks. I previously reported that the Corps may want to move the dredge pipeline, which we followed up, and we got everything that we needed for the easements and the rights of entry. The contractor has not fully decided which route he would like to take, though. So it still could go the other way, but we've got it ready for both alternatives. We do want to remind everyone from St. Regis to the north to be aware of the project. There will be pipes, equipment, and people moving throughout the area. It is important for their safety and the safety of others to not get in their way during this process. And again, we will be posting periodic updates on Facebook as the project is completed. The possible day for federal and state officials to visit Topsail Island. TISPC has been advised that federal and state officials will visit Topsail Island on March 19th, 2020. They will view the dredging projects at Topsail Beach, as well as other projects happening in Surf City and North Topsail Beach. Once we have a schedule for Mike McIntyre and Stephanie Meiser, we will let you know, because we've offered having a meet and greet here in North Topsail Beach as well. The town park repairs, Jim Stumbo will be here, is on the agenda to discuss that project. And then also with Town Hall, he's here to discuss that as well. I do have some news on the FEMA front, though, concerning Town Hall. We originally had put the project in, then we thought it had been taken out, but then they put it back in. So now, instead of the full amount, they do have a portion that they are still considering of approximately $125,000 to offset any discrepancies with the insurance. So that's actually, right now, that's what they've got in there. So it originally had looked like $400,000. So the terminal groin, Dial Cordy sent a proposed plan of study to Mickey Sugg and the Army Corps of Engineers. The Corps is analyzing, and Mickey informed Dial Cordy to make a few additions, and Mickey would be in touch to discuss possible dates for our initial interagency scoping meeting. And just to remind you, the Corps is now in the driver's seat for this process, and we are now working on their timetable for the process. Fran, would you like to add anything to that right now?
No, that's basically, we've been just together on the meetings and everything, and it is Mickey and the Corps.
Yeah, and you said you would talk to Steve yesterday?
Yeah, I talked to Steve Dial at Cordy yesterday to get an update, and he said they were just revising the plan and kind of working on trying to get a date here soon, the next month or so, hopefully.
The Jeffries Lease and Parking, SP Plus is the contracted company currently issuing driving permits in North End. They are working on options for the town to consider for possible paid parking, and they'll be at the planning retreat to discuss those possible options with the board. Financial, as I reported in an earlier report, I contacted Andrew Carter with DEC Associates to go through our financials to check the financial health of the town. I want them to take an in-depth look at our financials to help plans and futures, projects for the future. Andrew Carter reported back to me that he wants to wait until any leadership changes are made before they perform this task. And again, this is separate from our audit. The audit is to make sure we are meeting goals and policies, which is still being completed. I also reached out to them again to just say that we are still very interested, and I think Mayor Toomey, you said that you talked to him at the end of December, I believe. To Andrew.
Yeah, I was on a WASA Board of Directors meeting, and he was there to provide advice on WASA financially on some projects that they are doing. Just for your awareness, that we've used Andrew Carter or DEC Associates in the past for our Phase 1 and our Phase 5 projects. They provided assistance to USDA and to, I forget which bank that financed our projects. They were also very helpful with the local government commission, who has to approve all financial transactions dealing with financing. DEC Associates are the financial advisors on WASA, the city of Jacksonville, and to Oslo County. So they're good. We worked with them before. They're very helpful. So I think when they look at our financing needs in the future, okay, they're very knowledgeable as to what opportunities exist and what the best bet is. So the important thing is for them effectively to do their job. They really need to understand exactly what it is that's on the town's agenda in terms of projects, okay, so they can assess the amount and then what the financial opportunities are.
Okay. Thank you. All right, and that was financial. Now, human resources, the MAP study. As you will recall, we are working with the MAPS group to update our job descriptions, personnel policies, and salary surveys. Laura, Caitlin, and I have had multiple meetings with the MAPS to discuss. As you can imagine, this is very time-consuming. Laura and I drink a lot of coffee before those 2-hour and 3-hour conference calls happen. I mean, we have literally spent a dozen hours going through 64 pages of personnel policy. You think 64 pages doesn't take that long? That's not the case. So I'm happy to say that we should have only one more conference call to wrap this up, and our plan is to make a presentation to the board at the retreat, and we'll come with recommendations on the implementation of the study and the pay plan. Bike NC, we were approached by Bike North Carolina to be the final stop in their annual bike trip across North Carolina. They will have, don't look at the grammar in this part. They've had anywhere from 600 to 1,000 participants in past events. And this is exciting news for North Topsail Beach, and we look forward to working with them and the other partner organizations from Onslow and Pender counties. All the tourism development they're excited about having it here. That's going to be in October the 10th. And then the Sledgehammer Run. This past weekend was the Sledgehammer Run in North Topsail Beach, and the mission statement of the Sledgehammer Race Series is to honor the memory of Sledgehammer and all combat veterans. Because of our history, we're excited that the race was here, and because part of the run is on the beach, and we have had the truck haul project in the south end of town, the course had to be altered this year to the north end, so we apologize for any inconvenience because they were to go up and go around, and so to be a half marathon, and they wanted to be on both beach and sand. So, but we are excited that they had that. Several people have told me that when they went by the beach accesses, that they were packed on Saturday morning. So, and with that is it, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody have any questions for the town manager in this report? Nothing? All right, let's move on. The next item on the agenda is the open forum. Anybody in the audience who wants to address or comment to the board is welcome to do so at this time. We have a 3-minute limit. Has anybody signed up for the open forum?
Yes, we have 2 people who have signed up. The first is Mr. Nick Ruby.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Nick Rowley. I live on Topsail Road, and that road's a mile long. It's a 1-lane road, and there's an issue down between 4th Avenue down to 2nd Avenue. If you notice, maybe the town has, that after Florence had hit some major, all the vegetation on the dunes was good all the way up to 3rd Avenue. It's a disaster from 3rd Avenue on. I live in front of 486, 484. That house is not in line with the rest of the house from the beginning of Topsail Road, going all the way down. I think it's Street 28 down to Street 2. It's 20 feet more into the ocean. It's causing a big problem. I have neighbors. I realize at the meetings tonight, I have some busy things that I'm doing to study. And I'd like to tell you, you're going to replenish the sand, they're bringing the trucks in there. Don't bother going from 4th Avenue to 3rd Avenue, 2nd Avenue. I'm serious about it. You're just wasting your money. There's people in this area that says that it's dunes are up, storm comes in, they're gone. You know the reason why they're gone? Because the house is 20 feet more into the ocean, has no blockage. It comes in, it comes underneath the house, it goes on the side of the house, and it starts tearing the dunes down. And then it lands on my property. I replaced, by John Prince, he can verify, I replaced my driveway 2 times. We have to do something about it. If you take a ride down there tomorrow, go from the beginning, Topsail Road, go down the mile business, get to 3rd Avenue, and look at the dunes. No vegetation. After Hurricane Florence, you replenish 8 foot of sand in this area. Go look at it today. I've taken some pictures today, and I have them right here. I'm going to give them to the board here. I hope you consider and look at it. And I hope, we haven't put up in prayer, I'm also a reverend, that you would get back and respect me and give me an answer what your plans are going to do. Because I cannot continue to live, and the neighbors cannot continue to live with this hazards in front of our house. My suggestion is you put sandbags. Yes, you can do the sandbags just in front of the house and on the side, and then you build your dunes, and you'll probably be putting sand on top of the sandbags. That's all right, because that sandbag will stop the breach. It will stop the breach from all the sand dunes going down, because I know you're going to be putting vegetation in it, and that will all help out, and it will secure the area, and it will stop us. I have pictures on my phone that I can show you from the last King title. My front of my house was full of sand. The driveway was full of sand. John Prince came over and replaced the Flint driveway. It's an ongoing thing. And the only thing I'm saying is, will you please talk about it? They're getting ready now. The dump trucks are pouring in there. I talked to the gentleman, the head one. He saw the problem. Brian was so kind that he talked to me, and I brought it up. He's going to look into it. I'm here tonight asking you, pleading with you, will you please consider? And if you don't do it, please let me know, because I have to do something. It's my house. I can't continue to go on like this, and the neighbors can't continue to go on. If you want, I'll get a petition, I'll hit everybody. And if you do your research, you will find out that this is not the first time you lost all those dunes. It's not the second time. It's had happened several times, and you're wasting all your money. That's all I have to say. This here, I know I'm done, but this here one, You have already replaced 8 foot of sand after Hurricane Florence. You did it, you came in there, you did it, you replaced it, all that sand's gone 8 foot. This here was from the last king tide, after it was filled up, that John Prince filled it in.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Rowley.
very much.
Thank you, sir.
Reply. Mr. Rhodes, have you talked with your neighbors about the possibility of talking with the owner to see what the owner's feelings are about problems he's causing in your neighborhood? When I looked at that house, it looked to me like if you had a parking ramp going up to level with that slab from the street side that was stable, that a parking ramp would cover a lot of the area you're talking about, and then it would just be a matter of the wings, the size with sandbags. So have the neighbors talked as a group with the homeowner to see if the homeowner is willing to make any?
I have talking to the Kate, who's at 486, I think. She's willing to do anything that it is to take the situation. She rents it out. Now, Masaba, who I dearly love, he's up there 80-some years old. You know, he needs to be explained to what's happening. He can't park his car there. None of them can park their car there. And as far as, yes, I have discussed it, okay? I have not gone with Masaba because he's up there in age. I've gone with his son, and I have mentioned it to him. I am not a person, I'm very conservative. I do not believe in condemning any buildings or any houses. That's not me, not unless it's really a total waste. But I am for protecting other houses and the street. By the way, that street keeps getting salt and water, you're going to be replacing it. Thank you.
All right.
Next on the list, we have Mr. Jeff Meyer.
Although I have several concerns, my biggest concern tonight is with our meeting schedule. I don't understand why we were notified where it was in less than 48 hours of the meeting, and how on Facebook it was announced where we were having the meeting before town announced it. And I don't understand why. I don't understand the difference between a special meeting and all this. I really don't care. I don't understand why the board cannot say our meetings are going to be first Thursday of the month throughout the year. I don't understand. We've got intelligent people on the board, why they can't make a decision on when we're going to have a meeting. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Those are the only two people that signed up. Anybody else who wanted to address the board who did not sign up at this time? No. All right, let's move on then to the portion of the agenda that's public presentations and hearings. The first item is the town park and town hall projects. Jim Stumbo. Mr. Stumbo is of Stewart Cooper and Newell Architects.
Thank you. I want to give a quick update this evening on both park restoration and the town hall restoration. I'm going to give a little history and where we are today and where we're going on the project so that you get the full picture. As everybody should be aware, the park project was originally bid late November. We did not receive any bids at the first bid, so we rebid the project December 5th. We had one bid by Berry Building Group. After we received that one bid, the board authorized us to negotiate with the Berry Building Group to try to find some reductions in their pricing. They were only able to give us two items. One was changing from sod at the park to seating at the park, and a mistake they had in their bid where they had found a less expensive tennis court resurfacer after the bids were placed. The two of those came into a reduction of $65,000, so they were able to reduce their bid to a total of about $730,500. After we received those numbers, we requested from them a complete breakdown of their bids so we as the designers in the town could understand what made up the bid. Was the cost in the grading, was the cost in the landscaping, was it in the asphalt paving? We were never able to receive that from them. We'd asked for that multiple times. After working with them and trying to get that over the course of 3 or 4 weeks, Mr. Chadwick said, let's move forward with this, so we ended up rejecting that bid and moved forward with asking for bids one more time. So the third bid is scheduled for next Tuesday late afternoon. Currently, we have 3 bidders that are signed up to give bids. Benton Company out of Hampstead, Berry Building Group, the gentleman that gave us the bid last time from Winterville, and Norris Construction out of Wilmington. So we've got 3 confirmed bidders currently, and one other bidder, Bridge View, I believe it is, contractors out of Rockingham, who are still looking, haven't decided. So hopefully we'll be able to get more than one bid this time around. So that's next Tuesday where we'll receive those bids. Hopefully we'll find a better number than we had previously. So we'll know more obviously after that. Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Steinbeck, were they the same people that were supposed to bid the first time, or these new contractors?
All but Barry are new contractors.
Thank you.
We did make a couple of minor revisions to the drawings in this third bid. Mr. Norris from Norris Construction contacted both Thomas at the city, or at the town, and our office to discuss some concerns he had. One was the seeding and sod, so we are doing an alternate bid as part of the bid so that we can see that number on bid day. His main concern was 2 items. One was all the paperwork that's required in performing the project. And the second was the extensive insurance requirements for a contractor that has to bid on the project. So as far as the insurance goes, we had long conversations with Randy Reeves from Wells Fargo, who is the town's insurance agent. He allowed us to make a couple changes, not a lot of changes. So most of the insurance requirements are still the same at the request of Mr. Reeves in the best interest of the town. And as far as all the paperwork requirements, submittals, pay applications, all the items required by a contract and a bid, we have to leave those because it is a formal bid. So unfortunately, those are items that you pretty much have to do when you're doing a formal bid because of the council of government. So that's where it's at. It rebids Tuesday. We'll have more information then. As far as the town hall goes, we've got contracts to do the design work late in December. We started scheduling after the holidays. We were actually out there for about 4 hours Monday, myself and my team, along with our plumbing, mechanical, electrical contractors. Chad, the fire marshal, Scott from Public Works was there, Brian was there. And we really looked over the building, verifying what was there, what needed to be done, so that we can move forward on that. We have started doing the drawings for the restoration. We anticipate being out to bid for that project in 3 to 4 months. So think late spring, early summer. Once you're out to bid, you're gonna have about 30 days of bidding, and then we'll be able to find out where we are as far as the cost on that project goes. Any questions?
So, help me again, the next 3 or 4 months, you're doing design work?
We're doing all the drawings for the bidding, yes.
Okay. And you'll specify all mechanical, heating?
Yes. Yeah, and really just kind of give a quick overview. You're correct. We're redoing the plumbing, mechanical, electrical to an extent. The plumbing is in good shape. We'll have to provide new fixtures in the bathrooms. The mechanical, about half of the units are in good shape. Several of them have a lot of age on those, so we're going to specify new ones. Obviously new ductwork, because that was all damp and removed. Electrical, the majority of the electrical will be able to stay, so we don't have a lot of work there. Majority of the work then falls under the general contract part of it. Re-roofing, new windows, all the sheetrock and finishes, insulation. When we were out there last week, everybody's aware that y'all had paid to have a contractor come in a number of years ago and provide a foam sealant on the roof and in other areas. That wasn't complete, we found. There's a couple areas at the front and the rear where the ventilation soffits were still open to the ceilings. I know you had a lot of humidity and moisture problems. We're pretty sure we know where that came from. So we're going to fix that and add a significant amount of insulation before we close it all up. Yes.
One question I have is about modular wall construction such that we could, in the future, without great expense, reconfigure, particularly the second floor as our needs change in the future. Is that something that would make the cost prohibitive versus a fixed wall?
It would certainly add more cost because currently, right now, all the wood studs are still there. So we're not rebuilding all the walls, we're just coming back and putting new gypsum board on top of it.
Okay.
So we would end up having to demolish all the existing walls and build new. And I'm pretty convinced that the insurance is certainly not going to pay for that.
And I will say that I've also asked him to do two different versions, I guess. One is building back as is, so we will know what the difference would be with the alternative cost of adding the metal roofing, the new heavier duty windows, because there would be a difference in what insurance would reimburse us for back as is compared to what we want to do to upgrade it.
So we'll base bid fiberglass shingles like it's up there now, and we'll alternate bid a metal roof, and we'll base bid new windows similar to what's there, and we'll alternate bid a storm window that would handle the storms better. We're also going to alternate bid some electrically operated storm shutters that would go down over the windows. That would allow you to look at the option of the more expensive storm windows or the less expensive regular windows with the storm shutters. So just gives us something to look at and decide what's best for the town.
Do you have a rough idea of what a construction schedule would be on that type of project from award?
Our initial thought is probably 6 months, because you've already got a roughly dried in building, so you can really get to work as soon as you hit the site. So I think they'll be able to move fairly quickly.
Just some of the facial board.
So we're looking at 10 to 12 months from now to be done?
Correct. Well, hopefully a little quicker, but yes. And Brian did mention on the exterior, there are some wood fascia boards and accent bands that will be taken down and replacing with either cement board or some of the fiberglass boards that are available now, so we don't have any of the deterioration that's occurring.
Any further questions for Mrs. Stonebell? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is the post-storm beach projects. Fran, Way? Bring us up to date. Fran is with...
Yes. Yeah, hi, I'm a coastal engineer with Applied Technology Management. We've been working for the town for a few years now. Basically working with them, trying to make sure that all the beach renourishment activities and everything are going on as smoothly as possible. Basically, looking at there's about 8 different projects that are happening right now related to sand and nourishment and scraping. Ryan went through a lot of these already, so we're gonna basically focus on the Hurricane Florence. But I'll just go through them all. There's the Terminal Groin and Nourishment Project. There's a Hurricane Matthew project, which is ongoing now. There's the follow-on Dune project that's separate from that. There's a Hurricane Florence project. Then there's Hurricane Dorian. The Hurricane Dorian didn't do a lot of damage to the beach, fortunately, but that's still out there as well. We have the New River Inlet dredging that the Corps is doing, and Brian that's going to happen here in the Phase 1 shoreline up on the north. And then there's the Surf City North of Topsail Beach major core project that's happening. And then the 8th thing is some beach scraping that the town is going to do. So basically, the Matthew stuff and that extra dune stuff is really going to hit the southern 4.5 miles of shoreline and this year. And then the core project is going to hit kind of the northern mile of shoreline of the town's beach. That there's about 6 miles in between those that aren't going to get any new sand this year, but that will be kind of our focus for next year. And then there is that scraping project for that 6 miles of shoreline that's not going to get any new sand this year. That's that scraping project to really just trying to beef up that dune a little bit more for this hurricane season. For Hurricane Florence, basically there's three different major areas, there are 3 different bar sources of material. There's the offshore, there's the New River Inlet, and then there's the upland truck haul. For Hurricane Florence, there's the quote-unquote engineered beach section down on the Phase 5 shoreline, and then we have the natural beach in between, and then up here in Phase 1, where we did the calculations both ways, and actually the natural beach losses were better than the engineered beach losses. For engineered beach, we have to go out to the depth of closure, it's about 20 feet deep, quarter mile offshore, and we have to calculate all the sand there. And a lot of times in the storms, the sand will just wash from the upper beach to the lower beach, and they'll say that's going to come back on shore, so we're not going to give you credit for that. But in terms of the natural beach, all we have to do is look at the upper beach and the dune sections. So, that being said, our idea was that it's going to be enough sand for the natural beach and everything. It's going to be, it's over, 600. The category, the engineered beach is 607,000 cubic yards, and then the natural beach is about 137,000 cubic yards. So it's over 700,000 cubic yards of material, and that's really just not doable or practical for a truck haul. Truck haul right now is about 200,000 cubic yards, and that's probably about your limit. You don't really want to go more than that. So something that would do that was we were hoping to use the offshore bar area again. But at that meeting in December with the regulators, there was very, very strong opposition to using that bar area again. The town did spend a lot of money, and they estimated there were about 6 million cubic yards of material for that bar area, and the bar area has only been used once in 2015. So there's still plenty of material there, and so we're really trying our best to do this and get that to happen. And we are. I think we're confident that we can make it happen, but it's not going to be happening by next year. We don't think, because the Corps was very adamant that because of the rocks on the beach, that they were going to have to go through a whole different layer of analysis. And we'd have to go through the Endangered Species Section 7 consultation again, and that's about 6 months long. And they just wanted we're looking at how to make sure that those rocks don't appear on the beach again. And we can even put rock pickers on the beach and everything like they did. Basically, in 2015, when they did the project, the project worked for about 2 months without any kind of rock pickers or rock screening. And then the rocks were on the beach, and then obviously there was some rock picking and screening, and then there were screeners when the pipes came out, getting rid of that rock, make sure it wasn't on the beach. But they want even more than they don't even want the rocks to come on the beach, and they know that it was just everyone, all those regulators were very unanimous.
Brand,
Yep.
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Then, so for phases 2 through 4, who haven't had any nourishment yet, or in
Yeah.
desperate need for their dunes
Mhm.
to be
Yes.
put back,
Yes.
wouldn't it just be better to take the path of less resistance and go with the truck haul?
Yes. So we could split up. So there's definitely a few different options.
Okay.
The one option actually that the Corps brought up was that, and that everyone, if I can refresh everyone, there's the quote-unquote third event, which was the New River Inlet.
Right.
And that was about 600, 700,000 cubic yards of material. And that was actually the town got a modification to do that. The first event was the first project in 2013. The second was the Phase 5 in 2015. And the quote-unquote third event was another New River Inlet channel alignment. That was kind of tentatively supposed to happen around 2018, 2019. Obviously, we've had Florence and some other things happen. So the Corps was and I know we were really looking forward to using that offshore bar area again. The Corps was very amenable to using that New River Inlet. and saying, hey, that area, that's about 600, 7,000 cubic yards of material. We could do a modification on that, mix that around in a couple months, and you could get sand out here for the entire thing. Or another option would be to truck haul the material for phases 2 through 4. Basically, actually, forget about the phase 5 shoreline, which is already getting truck hauled this end, but anything truck hauled from the St. Moritz north, we could definitely do that for next year.
Well, but I think I could speak for the board, and I think you all will agree that we've talked several times over the years, and we all had the desire to have some type of hardened structure in place prior to any large dredging project of that inlet. So I guess I don't really view that as an option.
I'm going to just add into that. Some of us who were here and watched how that all happened after we did the inlet realignment.
Yes.
And you pull the sand out of the inlet, you put it on the beach, whether it's the beach adjacent to the inlet or 3, 4, 5, 10 miles, 100 miles away. The inlet's going to reclaim that sand. And it's going to reclaim that sand from in front of those houses where the sandbags are right now. So if we're moving sand out of there, we can't move sand out of the inlet until we have a hardened structure in place. And I don't think there's anyone on the board to echo what the Mayor Pro Tem said. I see that, frankly, not just as a board member, but as somebody who lives up there. That is a non-option.
Okay. Yes, I see that. But see, when looking back at all the documentation, there was the town had the quote-unquote third event kind of set up, and that was going to use the New River Inlet, and it was going to do the same thing.
And I don't think anybody disagrees with you, Fran, that was a viable option that was placed on the table years ago until we had some issues. But it's our desire now not to do that. Yeah.
And then the Corps was actually, the Corps brought that up in our meeting. We did not bring that up.
We did
not.
We were saying
understand.
we wanted to go offshore or truck haul, and then they said, hey, what about New River Inlet? We'd like you to use that. And so that's kind of how it came up.
Yeah. This is a FEMA project, right?
Yes.
For Florence.
Yes, this is, we're basically just concentrating on the Florence project and trying to get the Florence project to happen next year. Versus, obviously Matthew happened, 2016, and now we're here in 2020 and the project's happening. We can't do that again. We need to make sure that we can get that sand back on the beach.
I guess my question is the cost of the project is being borne by FEMA, whether it's truck or whether it's, if it's more expensive to do a truck haul to fix that, FEMA will adjust the amount accordingly to cover it.
Yes. When we were having our discussions with them, they basically said as long as it meets their environmental requirements, then, because we told them, we were trying to be frugal. I mean, that's basically, or as conservative as possible. And they said we want it to meet our environmental requirement. And whatever happens, then whatever it costs, then it costs that. Yeah.
But Fran, I didn't think your concern with the truck haul had to do with the cost. It was the timing to get all the sand on the beach that we need.
Yes, but there's two different components to the Florence project. There's the engineered beach portion, which is about 600,000 cubic yards, and then there's the dune portion, which is about 140,000. And if you could, from a cost perspective, it does make sense to do them at the same time and use the offshore bar area. And we're getting anywhere between $15 to $20 per cubic yards, dollars per cubic yard. When a truck haul is about $40 per cubic yard, and then if we were to truck haul, we probably wouldn't truck haul the 600 and the 140. We just do the 140, and especially there's a lot of it's a moving target here with that huge core project where they want to put basically we put that project is about 12 million cubic yards. This is a crazy amount of material. The biggest the town put 1.3 million cubic yards out there in 2015, and so this is 10 times more than that, and that's why it's such an expensive project. But if they did put all that material out there, I don't think the town would really need to touch that phase 5 shoreline for 10 years, unless at least.
Are we required to put it on there with Hurricane Florence funds that come back?
That,
I'm sorry.
So I think what
Yeah.
I heard was between what's going on right now in Phase 5 and with the Surf City Federal project and all of the large volume of sand that's gonna come in with that, if Phase 5 doesn't necessarily need additional sand that we are being reimbursed to put on there from Hurricane Florence, do we have to touch it, or can we use it on 2, 3, and 4? Does that make sense?
No, we couldn't use it, no, it's only for phase.
Yeah, the Cobra,
And
exactly.
Yeah, the Cobra.
But I'm saying just for the dunes.
Yeah, so that is tough too, because now the Corps and FEMA don't play well together.
Nice
either.
try though.
I like that.
The Corps and FEMA really don't go like, this is our beach, this is what we're doing, you don't touch it, and then FEMA and
Okay.
the Corps really are a hard delineation between their buckets of money. And so then that is a whole new obstacle right there. And even then, we were talking earlier, that the town's offshore bar area was based kind of on some of that offshore bar area of the selection of the Surf City Federal project, and there are rocks. So, you know, that's something that hopefully the Surf City Federal project doesn't encounter, but it's entirely possible that they could.
I was gonna ask you that question because my understanding was that those borrow areas were one and the same.
Yes.
And, you know, they didn't know they had rocks there in the borrow area that's been planned all along to be used for the federal project until we discovered them when we used the same borrow area in
Yes.
2015
Yep.
to do phase 5. So now they know, and we're gonna have the same environmental organizations
Yes.
raise the same red flags.
Yes.
So what are they doing?
We'll have to continue to follow. Basically, for the Surf City one, they identified, 30 million cubic yards of material in 16 different bar areas, and they're labeled A through R. I think the towns overlapped bar area Q, and bar area Q was a good bar area. That they said this is a good bar area, and so yeah, just what you said. But there were some other ones, especially at bar area A, which had gotten relooked at for Topsail Beach. And that's pretty far south. That's right near the inlet down there. But that we're thinking that you could hopper dredge that, and then we're still looking at that actually.
So we're gonna have to go back in and look at them
Yeah.
and decide which of the potential bar areas.
Yeah.
Ours wasn't, the one that we used wasn't the only one. There were
Right,
several
right,
others
right.
that were in that same
Yes.
general area.
And then the one that we use that is close right to phase 5, right offshore. There's live bottom, hard bottom nearby, and that was why they said you cannot use a hopper dredge for this area. You have to use a cutter head dredge, and because of the way they can dredge and everything. But a hopper dredge is better because it will reduce rocks. So there are some bar areas to the south of Topsail Island that may be that we could possibly use a hopper dredge and not that cutter head dredge.
Okay. So potentially, the federal project might go on hold because of rocks. Potentially.
Yes, there is a potential
Okay.
for that.
When we have the rock situation in phase 5.
Yes.
Okay, I contact through Pam Castens
Okay.
with the people who did found the borrow area.
Yes, the geotechnical.
Intended
Yeah.
for the federal project.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he assured me that sand was good. It was not rock.
Yes.
So, therefore, the suggestion that I made is when you're trying to do a Florence project.
Yes.
Okay, and the town's borrow area is not satisfactory. So why don't we use the federal borrow area that's supposedly clean? Okay.
Yes.
Since it's essentially sand that's going into the federal project designated area. Okay. So I'll ask you the question. Why isn't that an option?
It is. Now that we'll have to do now because of that Surf City project is online, and those are their bar areas. We're going to have to do a little more coordination to make sure that we're not using the same sand that they want to use. for this upcoming project. Previously, that they weren't doing anything with this project, and they were like, you guys can do whatever you guys want offshore with our bar areas, because we have no plans for them. But now there are plans for them.
Well, alternatively, if Hurricane Florence never happened, okay?
Yes.
And we went directly to the federal project, okay? Phase 5 would be restored to their federal project design, okay, which is more substantial than,
Yes.
than what we done.
Yes.
Using their federal borrow areas.
Yes.
So,
To kind of sum it up and make it a little bit easier to understand, what we're saying is that it's better to split the project, right? The 2,
Yes,
3, and 4.
to get it to happen
2, 3,
next
and
year.
4, and
Yes.
5, and
Next
then
winter.
that would be the best for phase 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
Would be to split it out and get that done. And as I'm hearing, it's the preference of the board that it be a truck-in project.
Yes.
At least at this point. But so that should be kind of the focus, is getting 2, 3, and 4 taken care of with the trucked-in project, and then 5, because of everything that's been going on, they're not hurting as bad, and we can worry about that a little bit later in a second.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna say they're not hurting as bad, but I will say
Yeah.
that they've got some
They've got a
options
couple-
on the.
couple projects
coming
going
Yes,
on.
yeah,
yes,
going
yes,
on.
So
and
they're not-
considering that, that 600,000 cubic yards of
Yeah.
material,
Clarification.
yeah, we will continue with the offshore bar area, but it just getting that, in order to, we gotta get the bid packages out, in the summer for a winter project. And right now, the timeline for a truck haul is very doable, but for using an offshore bar area,
Let's do that.
we won't be able to get out those bid packages by the summer.
okay.
All right, that makes sense.
Yes.
So I have a question, Fran, 2 questions actually. Now I'm a little bit confused. The town's permitted borrow area offshore, is it the same as one of the 12 federal designated borrow areas?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it overlaps
Okay, now,
with.
last year when we were talking about this, I think tonight you said there's like 6 million cubic yards of sand in the borrow area that
Yes.
the town is permitted to use. And we were talking about resampling more vibrocores.
Yes.
And you said last year that you felt like you had enough data to convince the Corps that rocks weren't going to be a problem.
Yes.
But since they have raised that question now, would they be amenable to looking at more data if you took more vibrocores and pinned down the 600,000 cubic yards that we needed out of that 6 million?
Yes, and that was one question that we had, and they brought that up. They said basically, a lot of the rocks that came up were larger than 3 inches, and the vibrocore sampler is a 3-inch diameter sampler. So they're just saying, and it's not like a solid core rock. That we have seismic investigations, and you can kind of see a signal if it's a strong signal where the change goes from sand to rock. But if it goes from sand and then just like kind of a rubbly rock layer to more sand, a lot of times that seismic data doesn't show that, show a good signal. And then they're saying that these vibrocores, when they send them down, they're kind of pushing these rocks to the side. And so we're trying to get with the samplers, the guys who do vibrocores, and saying, they're saying they can do a 4-inch or a 5-inch possibly, but even then, and they could do samples with that. But besides that, it would be, you'd have to go out with like some sort of excavator, and that just really you couldn't do it. It's too deep. So we're trying to get some ideas, and then actually there's another federal project, Folly Beach, South Carolina, that they put rocks on the beach as well, and it was a similar type of rock, and it was a similar situation, and they're working on another offshore area. So I'm trying to get with them as well to try to fine tune. And so that's a core project, and they know there are rocks offshore, but they still want to use an offshore bar area. So I think there is, there's some ways that we can try to make this happen.
So then, Fran, I would also then, just as it sounds like there's a lot of moving parts to this, and as you just mentioned, we'll need to be going out to bid this summer if we're trying to get sand on the beach for next year. So I'm assuming we'll be able to get these type of updates each month at these meetings, because you guys are gonna be having a lot of work in front of you right now, just
Yeah,
trying to move through
sure.
the process.
Yep.
Okay. That'd be good, thank you.
Okay.
Even if you have to call in, I know you're not.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure we could get some direction though, of splitting the projects, because when we first originally talked about the bid packet that he was working on,
Yes.
it was the two projects together. And, as long as you give us a little bit of leeway, we will probably begin separating that out to
Well,
go
do we-
ahead and look at that aspect.
Do we need a vote on that? Whether we're good as a board on 2, 3, and 4 being separated out from 5 for Fran's efforts?
Yeah, it would be cleaner. That way, because y'all have already voted for the bid packet to be one, and this sort of gives us a little bit of leeway. Doesn't mean we can't do it all together if we find another option, but I do believe it'd be better to look at that.
So you're looking for a decision from the board recommending a truck haul approach for phases 2 to 4?
As an option?
As an option, that's correct.
As an option or as a direction?
We could come back once we find out, you know, if you want to give it to us, we can go ahead and take it and roll with it.
From a timing point of view, Fran, when do you need that decision?
You know,
Today?
no, you know, within a month.
Okay.
Next meeting?
Sure.
But just to give you a heads up, then we will begin looking at that. That way, we'll be able to gather the numbers and get those together.
So what you need basically is guidance from the board that we are not opposed to a truck haul project for phase 2, 3, and 4?
Correct.
And I think
Okay.
just also strong opinion from the board that we want to do whatever we can to get sand on the beach on 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
On the dunes next summer. So
Mhm.
I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that time frame.
So do we need to make,
Or next fall.
do we need something more formal than that or not?
We'll make that an agenda item. I
Okay.
would recommend for next month.
Okay.
Also, I think it would be helpful to have a dune design, okay, for phase
Okay.
2 to 4. So
Okay.
we know, so folks understand exactly.
Sure.
the kind of
It should be
dune.
pretty similar to what's going on right now, very similar to phase 5. Haul. In terms of volume.
You know,
But yeah.
what are the basic dimensions? What's the?
Like a 50-foot base, 6 feet high, 10-foot wide crest. So, but we have 50-foot base and a 10-foot wide crest and 6 feet high.
Okay. I was under the understanding that FEMA was only going to allow payment for a so-called minimal pay. You know.
It does vary, up and down. It does vary. It might be a little thinner in some areas, but in general, it wasn't, you know, about that size.
All right. You have anything else, Frank?
No, that's it.
Okay, any other questions for?
Now, just to be clear, we have a board consensus to explore these alternatives with a decision to be made next month.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Fran.
Okay, we're now at the consent agenda. Need a motion regarding the consent agenda.
Make a motion, we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I believe we were taking
With
2
the
items.
exception before Mike took out.
Yep, those 2.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda is approved, exclusive of items E and F, which will be discussed later. Continuing business. Okay, item A on continuing business has been postponed until after the closed session. So B, the revetment committee update, possible action. Alderman Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. There's really no new information to present. As far as I know, our town attorney is still negotiating with Arundel Engineering to get an agreement in place based on the concerns that he had with with the agreement. We're hoping that that will soon be resolved, and we'll have a revised agreement from Rendell Engineers in the next week or so.
All right, moving on to new business, to the review bids for berm push. Town Manager Chadwick.
Yes, Mayor. We have obtained another permit for a berm push in other areas not covered by the truck haul project. This will provide for a push up to the south end of Topsail Reef, approximately 33,000 linear feet, give or take. We had two companies to bid on the project. One is W.R. Willis, which bid $3.87 per linear foot for approximately $128,000 if 33,000 stands. And then the other is C.M. Mitchell Construction, which bid $4.45 per linear foot, which would be about $147,000. And our recommendation is that to award the bid to W.R. Willis. And actually, W.R. Willis is the one who completed the push last year as well.
All right. Any questions for the Town Manager? He's requesting support for the bid of W.R. Willis, is that?
W.R. Willis, that's correct, yes, sir.
I'd make a motion.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the bid from W.R. Willis for the berm push at $3.87.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Yeah.
My only question in doing this berm push this year is if there are areas of that 33,000 linear feet that are too low and taking 12 inches off of that beach surface to put in the dune. Maybe those areas should be considered either by a coastal engineer or someone that could help us with that, so that we don't do a push in an area where it's going to result in a negative impact. That's my concern.
We can look at that. I know last year, like St. Regis, because their profile was lower, they decided that they did not want to take the push that was done last year. Now, this year, their profile is higher, and they have said that they would like to do that. If anyone would like to not have it done, or any HOA, whatever it might be, then they can let us know. Our plan is at this, in the north end here, is to try to coordinate it with the dredging project, because as the push is done here, then the dredging will come in and help replenish some of the sand that was pushed. So, but that is, we can work on something. How would you have a recommendation for it?
Listen, the purpose of this project basically is to restore dunes to their, okay. The Corps is going to put sand on the beach in a lot of these neighborhoods. Wouldn't it make more sense to wait and do the push after the Corps puts their sand down?
That's what he was just saying.
Cool.
That's what Brian had just said.
Well,
No, it is the same, the other way.
I was
do
doing,
the
I was
push
saying
and then
the other way.
sand would backfill.
Oh, I thought he said it the other way.
He was talking about
Yeah.
Right, I understand that part.
Yeah.
So you were talking about doing the push first and then letting the dredge fill in?
Help
I thought you
replenish.
mentioned it the other way.
Yeah,
Okay.
oh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
And
I don't know, Fran, do you have an opinion one way or the other?
I think from the environmental permitting windows, they're gonna happen about the same time.
yeah.
Because they have to happen before turtle season. So I don't think you even have that. They have to kind of run concurrently to be finished before turtle season.
Do you see any harm in doing it the way that Brian had it scheduled out?
No, I mean, that is, basically that material, in the winter, the sand usually goes offshore a little bit, and in the summer, and the mild, especially in the May, June area time, that sand should push back on, and that's when the dune starts growing. This is just giving Mother Nature a little extra push, and it's not a huge amount of material, but that's kind of the idea behind it, and really trying to have a beefier dune system for storms. But yeah, I mean, when you're moving just sand from one part of the beach to the next, the benefits are not as significant as when you are bringing in new sand. But you know, having a big strong dune system is an important aspect to storm kind of mitigation.
As I recall, the core project does not involve any pushing.
Correct, they would not be.
And when I think about the phase 1 project, okay, where they put the sand on the beach, and there was actually a gully, okay, at the foot of the dune, okay, and every time it rained, you had a lake, and the town then subsequently hired somebody basically to push that sand to eliminate the gully and provide some more dune protection.
Yes.
So I think unless you do the push after the core project, you're likely to have the same condition, which is totally undesirable. What do you?
Yeah, I mean, that is undesirable. I just don't think you can do, the core project is going to be pushing up right against that turtle window, and then the scraping, I mean, we only have about 2 months left until the turtle window, right? And both these projects are going to need that time, so.
How long did it take last year, or last time, to actually do the dune push?
Now, we went throughout the whole town, so it's 55,000. I want to say it was about 2.5 months.
Okay.
I can't remember, and historian Thomas is, of course, is the first meeting that he does. He's not. But I think it was about 2.5 months.
Okay.
But I think the project that gave us the gullies in phase 1, that was a significantly more amount of material than what we're talking about for the push and for what the dredge is going to drop offshore.
There's quite a bit of sand.
It is, but as you know, Alderman Leonard was talking about, it is a little slightly finer, and usually it's the coarser material that firms up like that and does that. The finer stuff usually doesn't do that as much, and this should be that finer material, which is, we like the coarser actually. It lasts better, and when we're talking coarser, we're talking, you know, like 0.05 millimeters, but you know, it does matter a little bit. But
There's a big difference when they did phase 1, and then the Corps came in right behind it, put the sand on the beach right adjacent to where the sand had come out of the inlet for phase 1 from the dredge. It was night and day difference in terms of the quality of the sand and the weight of the sand. It's unfortunate that this Corps of Engineers project is so late in the dredging season, because I think ideally the way to do this is, as the mayor explained, to get the sand down first and then do the push, so you're not just scraping existing sand, but you're actually sort of repositioning new sand that's been deposited there through the project. And I guess there's just no way around the timing windows.
No, it's up against the deadline.
Okay.
If we can work something, I will say, we'll see if they started in the different area, to see if that can be a possibility. I don't know. That's something that if you, I'll talk to W.R. Willis and get work south and north.
Yeah, south and north.
All right, we have a motion and a second, right, on awarding giving the town manager the authority to award a contract. Is there any other further discussion? All right. Why don't you poll the board?
Sure. Alderman Hyde?
Yes.
Alderman Leonard?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McDermott?
Aye.
Alderman Peters?
Aye.
Alderman Benson?
Aye. All right, the town manager has the authority to award the contract for a firm push. Okay, ASPBA conference attendance. Town manager Chadwick.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, now I'm not sure that you need to take any action on this item. I sent out a request to the board for anyone interested in attending the ASPBA conference. And this is also in conjunction with our trip to Capitol Hill to lobby Congress on the various needs of in North Topsail Beach. Last year, Alderman Leonard and I attended along with representatives from the other towns on the island, and I will say it was a positive experience. Alderman Leonard, he was instrumental in the message being delivered to congressional representatives about the needs of NTB, and I feel we actually made a pretty good tag team in that process.
Good.
So I currently have 3 members signed up to attend, as well as myself. Mayor Toomey, Alderman Hyde, and Alderman Leonard are currently planning on attending, and I need to know if there are any others who would like to attend. And then, just to let you know, and we will be saving some cash because we're going to be driving to DC. So, well, 3 of us will be driving. That's correct. I'm sorry.
I would ask any of the Board of Aldermen to input to the town manager ASAP specific topics or things that need to be accomplished at that Washington trip, so that our lobbyist McIntyre and the Ferguson organization can schedule the meetings appropriately. I have a few ideas that I'd like to accomplish with that $237 million that was appropriated, okay, for Surf City and North Topsail Beach. I'd like to pursue with our congressman taking a chunk of that money, about $16 million, and paying off our Phase 5 loan, which was basically a build ahead on the federal project, to see if there's any possibility for doing that. I'd also like them to schedule a meeting with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to see if we can, in the Cobra area, get a kind of a dispensation and allow the construction of renourishment of our beach as an exception, okay, as opposed to the issue that's in our bills regarding the residential areas. So I'd like to explore that also in this visit. And if anybody else has any other ideas, please.
Yes, I think it's my understanding that the trip to Washington is really sponsored by the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission, and each town sends delegates to represent their town. And as you recall, the Shoreline Protection Commission set a list of federal goals for 220, and so I think those are the things that primarily the lobbyists are going to be focusing on, are the island-wide goals. Now, if the town has additional goals, then that would be something separate and outside of the Topsail Shoreline Protection goals, so therefore we would probably have to engage the lobbyists outside of the Shoreline Protection Commission. There would probably be additional charges to look at those kinds of options that you're suggesting there.
Last year, when we went, and the delegation made the visits to Capitol Hill with Congressman McIntyre and his staff to the various elected officials' offices, you're right in that the issues that were discussed came right off of that list. But as you're well aware, that list is extensive. And what we spent most of our time on Capitol Hill were 3 things. They were the repeal of COBRA, they were the federal project, and they were the removal of the issue with the new Topsail Inlet being in a COBRA zone, and then now the sand couldn't be used. Those were primarily, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, those were primarily, you know, we got all these priorities on this list, but we picked the ones that are, you know, the low-hanging fruit, if you will, and this year, as we go back, 2 of those 3 have been accomplished. I mean, the issue with, I think, New Topsail Inlet is all but resolved, or primarily resolved. It may need some more work. The federal project has certainly no longer got, you know, other than to thank people for helping us with it, there's no more standing there with our hands out asking for help with it. So primarily what we're going to go back up there for in our town has got to do with COBRA. And, you know, and it still comes back to trying to get the land swap. And I know what Dan's advocating is that we sort of move the beaches away from the rest of it and focus on them separately. But to answer your question, Mike, I think we're there. I think it's really a matter of just identifying what's already been put to paper towards the end of last year for this upcoming year, and identifying the ones that we want to work during the visit to Washington. Does that make sense?
I'm willing to document what I would like to address in Washington, send them to Mike and Stephanie, and I don't expect any objection on their part, okay? Because essentially, the people that we'll be talking to will be the same people, okay? On the other thing, with the exception of U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife is essentially a vital contact regard to code. Okay, so I think in a way it's related, and I understand your concern.
You know, as we talked last board meeting, each time we put a new lobbying item on the table for our lobbyists, they're wanting, well,
oh, I know.
it's $500 more a month per item. So if we give them 2 more items, there is going to be additional costs. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, what I'm specifically addressing is a yes or no kind of discussion item on this visit, not a long-term kind of thing.
Well, let's walk it through Shoreline Protection Commission and have the chairman talk to Mike McIntyre or Stephanie, whoever up the Ferguson group, and make sure that this fits within the window. I think that window's it's pretty big, and I think we could probably make it fit within the confines of what we're paying them to take care of for us.
It seems like a logical approach.
All right.
With that.
All right. Any other further discussion on the Washington visit in March?
Just an observation, if we have one more alderman go, we probably need to issue a notice, because that would be an effective majority, just to cover ourselves along the same lines as I suggested for the TIA, Tupsail Shoreline Protection Committee.
All right. If right now there's only 2 aldermen.
I didn't hear a third, but I was saying if that happens between now and the trip, we need to issue something.
All right. All right, let's move on. The Army Corps of Engineers Nourishment Project Committee.
Yes, sir, Mayor. I also don't feel that there's any action needed for this right now, but wanted to mention it to you as well. As I mentioned earlier, we are obviously very excited about the project. We recently had our first meeting with the Corps in Surf City, and the reason I asked for this to be on the agenda is the item is Surf City has proposed a committee to oversee and manage the project. I would like to know if you're interested in the idea. I've spoken to a few of you to receive some feedback. They are currently planning on their part of the committee to include the manager, 2 council members, 2 members of the public, and staff. I'm not opposed to be a part of the committee once we establish the need, purpose, and work. I do, however, think at the moment we only need to have the manager and 2 board members and the staff, because the larger the group, the more cumbersome it gets, and it's harder to get anything done. And if there are any changes, I'll let you know. I just want you to be aware, and I know Alderman Hyde and Benson went to the meeting with us, the original meeting, and Deb went, and then Laura, Brian was there, and let's see, India went as well. So there was a good group of us of who's going to be the boots on the ground, and we have a couple of board members involved so that they will know what's going on and to be able to be a part of it, to relay things. And I think that would be enough for us. So, and I'm not asking for any action, but I was just, unless somebody thinks that there needs to be any action, but I don't believe so.
As I understand it, the Corps will manage the project. Right. They'll contract out the dredging and Pam Castens and her associates are the project managers.
That is correct.
Okay. When do we see, you know, you've attended the first meeting, when do we see a project plan from them? You know, did they say?
Well, yes, the first thing, we both towns have already submitted their post-Dorian surveys, and we received an email today that they have received their initial funding, so now they'll take those most recent surveys and bring them up to real time to today, which won't be a significant change. They provided us with some additional information at that meeting about inventorying the various properties and see where they fit on this matrix. And as you know, Mayor, we're working towards a project partnership agreement, commonly referred to as a PPA. So the homework was put out. We already gave them the surveys. Once they give us the most recent survey back, we will have to make a choice as to whether we want to go out. They refer to the easements as estates, whether we want to go ahead and start that process before the PPA is entered into or wait until the PPA. The only risk we would face is that if those template lines change and the easements we receive prior to the PPA being entered don't match the project template, then we'd have to get that easement again. But we discussed that at length last Thursday. I've spoken with Chris Gibson about it. I plan on speaking with Fran about it. I think the way we would handle that is we would take the most recent template they give us, and then get a fudge factor of however many feet the engineers recommend. Then we can go forward with the estates. So that's where we are on the project template, and we're marching towards the required PPA as well.
And so just,
Yeah, Fran was
I'll
part
just
of that
really
process.
quick here. So from 10 years ago or 15 years ago, the original, it was 11.9 million cubic yards over 52,000 feet, so over about 10 miles. And so it looks like about 6.5 miles is Surf City, maybe about 3.5 miles is North Topsail Beach. So it is, but it's a significant amount, 11.9 million cubic yards, and then it sounded like it might even be more like 13 million cubic yards now. So just an amazing amount of sand.
That's the number they put out.
Yeah, 13 million.
Yeah.
And then maybe about 1/3 of that will be on North Topsail Beach shoreline. Kind of does all of that stuff.
I don't know if that addressed your question, Mayor.
Well, I mean, on the initial stuff, so it's basically, they're gonna do once they get the latest post-Dorian data, they'll come up with a new design, and they'll come up with an exact number of cubic yards, and then we'll know. You know, I would expect the easements, essentially, the easements we got for Phase 5 will probably be sufficient.
Their Savannah Property Division requires some specific language in addition to the language. They won't, the federal government, for purposes of the estates, will not acknowledge North Carolina law as to what is imprinted with the public trust rights, and their reasoning behind that is because at any given time the General Assembly could change North Carolina property law, or a case could come down changing North Carolina property law. So they want some specific language in there regarding beach access, not to the beach access, but on the beach access. As we know, in North Carolina, the public already has the right to be on the dry sand beach. So it's duplicative to have that language in the easements for purposes of North Carolina law, but since it's federal funds, they want perpetual easements that have that language in there in the unlikely event that the North Carolina property law changes in that regard.
Nice. All right.
But we've already got our survey, it was Thursday, wasn't it? Thursday afternoon.
Yeah.
I think it was on my email before I even got back to my office. They have it, and Pamela Castine said they have it for Surf City as well. So they told us they had funding today. They said they were waiting on that funding, and then once they got that, they could get going. And so all of those pieces are in place.
So what is this committee supposed to do that isn't already gonna be done by the attorney, the manager, the coastal expert, the Shoreline Protection Commission? We've already got all these cats and dogs, and they got jobs and they know what they're doing, and I'm not really sure, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm not really sure what this committee's, what's its charter, what's its mission, you know, what are its tasks and responsibilities and roles? What's it gonna do for us that we don't already have individuals and organizations in place that are already gonna do? I mean, you know, at the end of the day, you're gonna coordinate it for the town, and you're gonna come to the board for guidance. Then we're gonna get through the attorney for the legal pieces. We've got the Shoreline Protection Commission that's been instrumental in kind of shepherding this thing along for well over a decade. I don't know what we get from this committee.
And I'm not sure exactly if they know what the actual, or what they wanted to do. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if it was
Sure.
just something that they just thought would be something to do. Kyle and I have been in contact with the new manager of Surf City, and so, you know, we're in contact every few days and to discuss things, because it's a big project for him as well, especially this is just his second week on the job, so it's sort of overwhelming. So he and I, you know, we've been doing a lot of talking on this, and I will relay those concerns as well. I think that may be what they want to do on their end, which I think is fine, because as long as we keep everything, the communication open, and we have maybe a periodic meeting together just to say, okay, this is where we are, so everybody's on the same page. You know.
The point is, we expect to be, whatever meeting there is between the Corps and it involves North Topsail Beach and Surf City, we will have representatives at that meeting.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. As appropriate.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure we're represented equally.
Correct.
If the committee comes to decisions, I want to make sure that they're equal representation.
I don't think the Corps has requested that committee. I think that's an internal thing within the town of Surf City, but yes, both towns' interests. At least at the first meeting, I thought, chime in if you saw it.
No,
We're treated as one entity.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any idea when we'll have the PPA to the towns for review and approval? They didn't talk about it. There's still no forecast as to when first construction will start.
Well, I don't want to miscalibrate the public's expectations, but there were some milestones, ideal milestones they're striving for, Mayor. But at that point last Thursday, they had not received their initial funding, and I think, and Jerry, you chime in if I don't state it the way you heard it. They're very ambitious milestones, and I'm hesitant to say those, but suffice to say that I've never seen the Corps as motivated to move as quickly as they were talking last Thursday.
They definitely want to be as aggressive as possible in a timeline.
All right, it's premature.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anything further on this subject? We can move on, okay. All right, we're back into the open forum. Anybody again?
No, these two items.
Oh,
We amended the agenda to get the
yes.
information.
Planning board
and
Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustment into open session. So I just have a question of the planning director on the planning board, the recommendations. I'm not understanding your coding here on the list of regular members. All right, so you've got a point for two people, Becky Dixon and Mia Green. Are you appointing them for the first time to the committee, or were they alternates, or?
They were alternates, so you're appointing them to their position as regular members.
Okay.
If they were coming up on the end of their term, then it would have been a reappointment. And so for the new members, for Richard Grant and Susan Myers, it's an appointment as alternate.
And so does the alternate have a term?
No.
So they're kind of just like available for whenever they're needed to sit on the committee when someone is absent? Is that how it works?
If there's a member that's missing, then they would pop up into that place. And then as members leave, then those alternates get rotated up into a regular position, regular appointment, as the new person comes in and they're an alternate. And then that way they're able to sit in on the meetings and to learn some of the procedures, rules of procedures.
Okay. So you feel like you need 2 alternates for the planning board?
I have 2 vacancies. Mr. and Mrs. Bowman both resigned.
Okay. And so I had the same question on the Board of Adjustment, but I think I understand you're coding now, but you've got 4 alternates?
And the 4 alternates is a requirement of the UDO.
Okay.
The number of members for both the planning board and both the aldermen are stipulated in the ordinance. And so there would have to be an amendment. There would have to be an amendment to the UDO in order to change the membership number.
So did you or the board vet any of the applicants that applied for the two boards in terms of talking to them other than what they put in their application materials?
I will say both members have been showing up to the meetings on a regular basis.
Okay.
And I did send the list to both the planning board and the Board of Adjustment members.
Both of them are here tonight too, aren't they?
And both Susan are here, and Richard is here, and Hannah is here, and Becky Dixon is here, and Scott is here, and who am I missing? Am I missing somebody? I'd be embarrassed if I was. I did say Hannah, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have a number of board members here as well as the 2 alternates.
Okay. My other comment is, we've talked before about the application that the town uses for these different committees, and just looking at the opportunities we list for people to volunteer for. We've got the planning board, we've got the shoreline protection, we've got government advocacy, and we've got another category. The shoreline protection says currently Board of Aldermen only. My question is this the town shoreline protection committee, or is this the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission? Does anyone have any clarity on that? Do we actually need to have that category on the application form anymore? And the government advocacy, have we had a government advocacy group?
Not that I'm aware.
I'd recommend that we revise the application for town committees for the future, so that it's simpler and that we make it so that it can be filled out online, so people don't have to print out a copy and write it in their own handwriting, which is sometimes hard to read when you get old.
Do we need to take a vote on that?
Well, we can't.
That's right.
This is a special meeting, and
That's right.
that's not on the agenda.
Okay.
Staff heard Alderman Benson's comments, and I'm sure staff will be willing to talk to Alderman Benson and perhaps bring it back at the next meeting for your consideration and possible action.
Just add an agenda or an item in the manager's report next month as to what.
So we do need a motion though to approve these new candidates, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'll
I'm
move
sorry
that.
if I misunderstood Alderman Mayor Pro Tem McMillan. I thought she was talking about the application.
Yeah, she was. I think we need a motion for approving these new members of the two organizations. So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, welcome to all
Yay.
permanent.
Yay.
Careful what you ask for.
Okay. It's, you know, always very happy to see people volunteer to help. All right, now, open forum. Do we have any sign up for the second open forum?
Yes, Mr. Phil Fowler.
Evening, board members. You'll recall that at the last meeting, I addressed you on perception being reality. Well, we've heard a little bit of that tonight. We go back to communications. You've not done well with that. You've done good and some other stuff. But communications, you haven't quite got there yet. I don't understand a government that we have to come to pull information out of. That's you. That's us coming to you. You should be pushing out to us. We are the constituents. I don't get it. It just makes no sense to me in a governmental run system. And how you harbor and maintain that information for dissemination or not. You wonder how we get bad vibes about things. That's exactly how it goes. No different than being with kids. You're just big kids. You hoard that information. I'd like to go back and address one thing that Mr. Rule said. And what I don't understand, I stepped it off 105 yards from where they tore through that dune down at 3rd Street. There was a house sitting there that all they had to do was take the dozer and drive through. Plenty of room for a truck, but we dug up a viable dune to get that done. Who checks this stuff out for us? Who does that? If that don't sure ain't being done, don't look like. But he's exactly right. They are. I'm down at 3745 Island Drive. He's 3 miles beyond me. But I stroll down that way. I stroll up this way and see the challenges that they've got up here. It was interesting to hear the conversation about sand tonight because all of you are so focused on this North Inlet issue. You do these sand things just like this.
Amen.
We'll do that for the rest of the issues that impact the town of North Topsail Beach. Get out and be leaders. Be what we voted you in for or appointed you in. You're not appointed in because you're a good old boy network. And if you are, then some of this stuff that was being bantered about, yes, votes do count. I'll be right back next month with that report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, if I could address one of your comments about knowledge of the beach up and down. We do know about the beach, and we know about it at the south end. That's the issue with the rocks on the beach during Phase 5 during 2015. The issues of the borrow areas. You know, just to kind of set the record straight here, we do get out. We do get out, and I was very familiar with what was going on during that project when it was done when I was on the board the last time. So, you know, if we're not meeting your...
I was down there the last time, so I wasn't completely naive.
Right.
And what was going on.
Yeah,
So
and we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen again, but we do try to be, as much as possible,
What I found
conversant
interesting
on
was that breaches are not new. Putting sand on the beach appears not to be new. I'm relatively new, you know that. A couple of years is all I've been down here, folks. I'm simply reading your notes and reading historical stuff. And what I see, perception is reality.
Okay.
And what I don't see is this board doing things for us out there. Now that beach, we can talk about it all you want, but the bottom line to it is, I watched that burn push last year. I'm not a smart guy, but if I had paid for that, I'd expect you to whip me. That was as foolish as I've ever seen. It lowered the beach. Within 30 days, that sand was gone. Seemed like a sizable chunk of change for us to pony up to say we had a push. Now, it seems like there's some folks that do need some help. And don't go down there and say, I'm gonna do that 3 miles right there. If he needs help right now at his place, wherever that is, within our city. You're not part of this phase 5, so we can't get to you. Are you kidding? We can't take care of us. So yes, I will be back next month. I do watch, and I'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you.
All right, anybody else?
Yes.
Excuse me. Walt Dixon, 113 Barton Bay, and I'm concerned about the push as well. I know you all okayed it tonight, but probably starting just north of the dunes here, all the way down to Marina Way, we're not dealing with sand anymore. We're down in the substrate below the sand. It's big globs of, it's almost like a tar substance.
Yeah.
It's my wife and I have been out there with the wagon hauling it to underneath our the stairs for the last month, and other people have too. There's been other people up this way, right below the dunes, that have been doing a lot of it too. But that's not sand any longer. We're below the sand, and that's right where the water breaks at the edge of the low tide. And if we do a push now, we're going to be taking all the sand away, and we're going to be in trouble. So I think we've got to look at that and take a little more serious look. There might be places down the beach that can withstand a push right now. I know that maybe 1,000, 2,000 feet right there, you're down into what's below the sand right now, and that's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think you heard earlier in my comments the exact same thing I said. There are certain areas that probably shouldn't be pushed, and we need to identify those areas.
Well, look, I think it's important, you know, addressing the town manager, that we publish a document basically that explains or illustrates what our immediate project plans are. Okay, I mean, we have the Phase 5 truck haul. Okay, we have the Florence beach replenishment for Phase 5. Okay, we have the dune reconstruction Phase 2 to 4. Okay, and then somewhere there's a small area that there's a berm push, and I don't think it's in any of the areas that this gentleman talked about, right? But I think we need, you know, to publish that so that people know what we're talking about. And then if somebody who's affected by that all of a sudden says, stop, you don't want to do that on my property, then I think, you know, they should specifically discuss that with the town. Okay?
Well, we've got issues beyond that with this push, though, from what I'm hearing from Mr. Dixon and the other gentleman in the back. And the issue is that, I know in your case, you're not oceanfront. You're up in Barton Bay. So
I own the oceanfront.
But you do own the oceanfront?
Yes, I do own
But
the
on
oceanfront.
Marina Way, it's not that way.
Okay. Well, my concern was if you didn't own the oceanfront, but you observed this issue that we need to address. And so you know, Brian, we're going to have to very carefully hands-on manage this push to make sure that we're pushing in places that need to be pushed and we're not screwing up.
To my knowledge, the area that he's concerned about, Topsail Dunes, is not scheduled for a push.
He's across.
He's right, he's
Oh,
right
yeah,
next
he's-
to our development.
he's
So
before
I'm
you-
on Marina
right.
Way, he's Barton Bay, he's past Topsail
Right.
Dunes.
He's
He's
before
south
you get-
of
No,
Topsail Dunes.
I know where he's at, but I don't think that area is designated as getting a push.
Yeah,
As getting a
yeah, push,
beach.
a push.
Oh, I thought it was getting a beach dune restoration in that area.
That will be in next year.
Next year.
That's what.
He's talking about the push for
fall,
this
excuse me,
year.
This year, the
fall.
push.
This year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got to get, I don't know if it's going to be the Public Works Director or you or who, but somebody needs to really actively manage this.
And
make
we
sure
will,
that we take these concerns into account, because what I think what you're digging up there is the old road.
But Tom, to your point, some of those communities do not own, like Marina Way.
Right.
We as an HOA or even individual owners do not have oceanfront
Right.
parcels there, neither does Bay Court. So that's just an example of areas where, I don't know how, if we need the town to look at that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I,
There's not gonna be an individual owner that can say, please don't push
yeah,
it.
because I didn't think he owned that property there, and if it wasn't, then the town's doing the push. So it's gonna have to actively be managed by the town.
I agree.
Okay. All right, anybody else?
And-
For,
there will be an opt-out too for anybody that was not in that area, because like I say, St. Regis did the same thing last year. So, and we will get that out,
all right, get it out and to be sure that all of the people who would be affected by the push are aware of it, okay, so that they can respond.
They will be, we'll make sure that they are.
All right. Is there anybody else, Madam Clerk?
Somebody just
Sonia?
raised their hand right back here.
Just to piggyback on that, is there some notice you can give, because some of us oceanfront owners who
Ma'am,
have
could-
our sand fences up.
Ma'am,
that
could you
we would be
approach
able
the
to-
lectern?
Could you,
Well, my only question is if we can just have a lot of notice, so that if we have to get someone to take down our sand fences before the push, that we have that time.
Yes.
Thank you.
he made note of it.
Okay, but could she state her name so we can have that
For the record,
minutes?
name and address.
Terry Ward,
Yeah.
Ocean View Lane.
Ocean View.
Thank you, Ms. Ward.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else in this open forum who'd like to comment? All right, now let's move on. Attorney's report.
Item to discuss in closed session. Other than, I'll just say that as I said earlier, the Corps seems to be very ambitious on the federal project, very cooperative, certain areas thinking outside of the box. As we all know, that's not always the reception we get when we interface with the Corps on our projects. So I'm excited that that project was funded, and I think it will bring some sand to this town.
Okay. All right, Mayor's report. What I'd like to share with you is a voicemail that I received. If I can get to it.
Hi Dan, Steve Smith. Give me a call when you can.
Not that one.
Good evening, Mayor. This is Tom Tillis. From the sound of your the ring when I called you, it sounds like you may be traveling internationally, but I'm sorry I missed you. I was just giving you a call. Tomorrow you're going to be getting a call from the Corps of Engineers to let you know that they're moving forward with the North Topsail project between Surf City and North Topsail. It's about $237 million. We were thrilled to hear it. I was with the OMB last week talking with them about it and got the good news, and wanted to make sure you heard it, and you'll be getting the official word probably over the next 24 hours. But as y'all move forward with the project, if there's anything we can do to help, count us in. Again, this is Tom Tillis. Hope you're doing well.
Okay, just want to share that with you. All right, so Alderman's reports. Jerry, can we start with you this time?
No.
No, no.
Yes, again, I'd just like to thank everybody for showing up. We do appreciate the input. We do appreciate the comments, and please keep them coming and keep showing up.
Thank you, Jerry. Tom?
Thank you, everybody, for coming out and for the comments. Kind of piggyback off the attorney's report. I think this is a big win, not just for us and for Surf City, but probably for the Wilmington District of the Corps of Engineers as well. I don't know how many of these that they get and how often it happens, and it kind of gives them an opportunity to get in the game and to show their stuff too with their next hire up. And to that end, I think that, and I've mentioned this with the Mayor Pro Tem and the manager, so we need to get as far in front of this as we can, so that in the event that Surf City isn't ready, that we can raise our hand and say, we're ready, come north. Because right now the plan is to work the project from south to north, with Surf City being first and North Topsail being last. We've done a project similar to this about 5 years ago, so we have corporate knowledge on it. A lot of our easements we need to redo, I guess, with what you said, but we've done it, and our area of the beach is actually shorter, and it would be really great if we could be ready before Surf City, and the Corps' going to be energetic to get something started, and I'd like to see that get started north of the town line with Surf City. Get us done first. The early bird's going to get the worm. That's all I got, boss.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Joanne?
There's two things. I was asked to represent North Topsail Beach for the Chamber of Commerce, so I would like to start attending those meetings. She said that we're the only town that's not represented there, so I think it would be good to have a representative there. Is that not true?
Which chamber?
It's Topsail.
Greater Topsail.
Greater Topsail Chamber of Commerce.
I go there.
She said, yeah, she said nobody's there. You're already going there? Okay, then I don't need to go. And then the other thing I wanted to do was, Mr. Fowler, I would like to give you my card so we can talk offline, because communications is something that we really do strive hard to make sure that we're getting information out. We have very different mechanisms of doing that on social media. We have staff doing it every day, posting updates out there. We do have a lot of projects in work right now, so I'm not saying that we can't improve upon that, but certainly I'd like to talk with you and get some feedback on that, and also I'd like to just kind of discuss some of your concerns with you. So I'll get you my card afterwards, see if you have time.
Richard?
First and foremost, thank you all for all being out there, and the input that you've provided tonight is indispensable to we as a board. As Mr. Fowler well points out, we're not adept particularly at getting information out, so it obviously points out we need to work on that. Thank you. Secondly, I would say in concert with the input and this discussions certainly centering on our beach nourishment efforts, we've got a lot of projects imminent, it seems, and or being facilitated. I would just point out we've got a potential retreat, I will say, scheduled for February 28th, if that's going to be practical. Hopefully that will be another opportunity for us to certainly get additional input and information among ourselves to further assist with these projects, and it would be another opportunity for you as the public to sit in on and try to partake of getting additional information and being more comfortable with what we as a town are trying to do. So again, thank you all.
Michael?
I just wanted to follow up the meeting tonight. How much time we spend talking about sand? We spent a lot of the meeting tonight talking about sand on the beach. Okay, and you heard it's just not always that simple. Fran's issue with the borrow area, all the intricacies of these different groups wanting to question if we can use sand here because of rocks and so forth. So it's not a simple matter. But I kind of wanted to sum it up from something I heard from our town manager this past week, and he said, you know, we got a lot of stuff going on with the beach, but everybody oceanfront is going to get sand in some form on their beach this year. Now, isn't that a great thing? 11 miles of town, and everybody's going to get some sand, either federal project or Florence or whatever, but worm scrape, whatever, everybody's going to be eligible to have sand on the beach. The whole town, not just north end. Please call me, email me when you have a question. Be glad to talk to you about any town matters you're interested in discussing. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michael. Okay, that concludes the Alderman's report. We need a motion to go into closed session now to consult with our attorney.
So moved.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. All right, so
We take that 10-minute break, 5-minute break.
yeah, you want to recess before?